Awesome. So, yeah, my name is Tara Williams, and I am the CEO and founder of Innovative Collegiate Consultants. I'm also a chemistry professor at the College of the Canyons in Santa Clarita, California. I've had my work with neurodivergent students for about the last 11 years in California. And I've been wanting to do a webinar for a while with an amazing therapist to also work on some sort of social emotional strategies besides just the normal executive functioning for the students that we work with. So I'm going to go ahead and let Melanie introduce herself.
Yeah, hi. Thank you all for coming. So nice to see you and be with you. My name is Melanie Siegel. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I work with children 8 plus, teens, adults, couples, and I run therapy groups. And I'm really excited to be here with Dr. Tara talking about how we can regulate emotion before expecting productivity.
Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and share the PowerPoint. Feel free to pop anything in the chat, or if you have questions, we're going to definitely have some time for that at the end. I'm going to talk. I know most of you know a little bit about executive functioning, but I wanted to sort of start with that since that's what we largely work with, at least to start with students. So can everybody see the presentation? Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about strategies for success at home and at school. Okay, there we go. So, sort of a couple of goals for me to talk about is going to be sort of what is executive functioning, some struggles that students might be having, some possible solutions, and then talk about the transition to college. Okay, so executive functioning, we get this question a lot is sort of what is this, right? This is our mental skills that help us plan, stay organized, remember information, and a lot of managing time, right? Time management in general. And as we know, we're going to talk about students today, but we all have to use executive functioning skills every day. And I think for me, even with my job and with my business and everything, it's very hard sometimes to have that organization and time management piece when there's so much going on and we're being inundated constantly by information. But with students particularly, we're talking about working memory, attentional and attention, I can't even say that word, control, and problem solving. Goodness. Okay. So where does the term come from? So we like to think of it as the brain's central executive. So it's our conductor, sort of keeping everything in sync in terms of our focus, being able to switch between tasks. Like we were just talking about when you're sort of working on something diligently and maybe you get an email and you stop what you're doing. Oh, I have to answer that email right now. And then you go back and I don't know about you, but I'm constantly like, what was I working on? Right? What was I doing? And then helping us hold on to that information as like a mental note. Basically, it keeps everything working in sync. So if your conductor struggles, right, that for many students, the conductor that's keeping everything together, the conductor has a harder time keeping the orchestra together, right? We're no longer moving in one piece. We suddenly have like a horn player doing his own thing, right? Or somebody on strings that's offbeat. So this throws everything sort of out of whack and can make our daily task feel overwhelming. So we want to work with the right strategies and support to help strengthen that conductor and help our students find success. So, looking at what we basically do with executive functioning as children or adults or students is that organization, time management. Some of the struggles that you may see are losing assignments, right? Whether that be in the backpack of no return, where everything gets crumpled up, or on your learning management system. I feel like now, sometimes even as a college professor, I see other learning management systems where a professor has they have modules, they have syllabi, they have email communications, and then they have a whole Google workspace within a learning management system. So sometimes for a student, that's 5 different places to check for information, right? That's easy to sort of lose what's happening there. A lot of times we see students that have working memory limitations. So difficulty holding on to those multi-step directions. I definitely think this is often seen in STEM when we're looking at math problems, multi-step problems there, word problems, or even sometimes just forgetting what they just read or heard. So a lot of times I see this issue with students where their teacher or professor may make a change to an assignment or, oh, our test got moved to Thursday. And then it's never written anywhere. The student completely forgets that there's anything that's due. They're like, oh, but the test was never moved because they didn't remember what information they just heard, right? So task initiation is another big one. Procrastinating, and I would say not even procrastinating on purpose. I mean, we all procrastinate, but sometimes just not knowing where to get started because the assignment is huge, the prompt is huge, and maybe needing to sort of chunk that down, but not knowing how to do that. And then obviously the attention and focus, sustaining focus in the class or on your work or the distractions that are constantly around us. And then possibly some inconsistent performance. So we know that the knowledge is there, that the student has it. And if we sort of had another way to test it, we could tell that it's there, but maybe not in a testing or written assignment scenario versus maybe verbal task or following directions in a different way or a group project. So, can we help? Yes. So, executive functioning continues to develop into the early 20s, which is good. So, we can still work on it no matter where we're at, right? And then stronger EF skills equals better outcomes in adulthood. Kids and teens' brains are malleable. Their strategies now can have long-term impact. And these strategies will benefit all students. So whether students are neurodivergent or not, right, that principle of universal design, if it works well for those students, it'll work well for all students. Okay. So thinking about externalizing our reminders, right? Breaking those large tasks into smaller ones. So externalizing it, sorry, I meant to say like saying it out loud, right? Writing it down and saying it out loud, depending on what the student needs. Breaking those large tasks into smaller ones. So those are what we would think of as like chunking information. So as I said, if a prompt has 4 questions, let's have one question, one question, one question, right? Chunk it out so the student doesn't look at it and they say, oh my God, this is so much. Same thing at home with chores. Maybe if we have a large chore, breaking it into smaller tasks till we can get to the bigger task at hand. My video is not up here, sadly, but it was on body doubling. And it's from one of our students that talks about how body doubling works the best for her, as in she cannot do her laundry unless there's a friend in the room sitting with her while she does her laundry, right? This has now become this huge buzz thing online. I don't know if you guys have seen it, like these admin parties where adults are literally bringing a task with them so that everyone there can do a task they're putting off, whether it's getting your driver's license or applying for new insurance or whatever. We all use body doubling all the time. Going to a coffee shop to work when you can't get things done at home is body doubling, right? That's being with other people working. And for students, it really helps them to have somebody else to do things with, whether that's a tutor or a friend or a classmate. Building in those reward systems are always important. We all work with reward systems, right? We all have something that we desire, whether that's success, whether that's for me, chocolate at the end of the day, or whatever it is that we need. But building in reward systems when something gets done, or even some people just get the satisfaction of a check mark on their list, right? That gives us that dopamine. And then blocking access to distraction. I know that I'm from a different generation than the students now, but even so, like I know that my phone is a distraction for me. Like I have to turn it on to do not disturb or things like that because if something, as I said, comes in an email or something, I feel this urgency to answer it, even if it's not urgent, and then that takes me away from the task at hand. Oh, let me see if I can play my video. Let's see if it'll play. I don't think it will. But there's Morgan. She's there just in case. So we'll send the slides and you guys can watch the video. Okay. So the bigger picture. So if we plan ahead and use those executive functioning skills, that's going to reduce anxiety because the student isn't already feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. I'm so unorganized. They're not trying to work on assignments at 2 in the morning by themselves. I always tell my students in the classroom and beyond, please don't stay up all night doing anything. It's really not helpful, even though I know that I stayed up all night when I was in college, at least a few times. But as we know, that turns us into not so great thinkers in the morning, right? So trying to plan ahead in order to reduce the anxiety that comes from doing things at the last minute. Okay. So facts about time management. So time management is an executive functioning skill. Like we said, it can be taught and strengthened. And in struggles with time are often about skill maps, not motivation. I think a lot of times it is looked at as, oh, you just didn't manage your time properly because you didn't want to, right? You're lazy, you're unambitious. When this is really not the case, it's that students or people in general are lacking the ability to manage their time and to figure out how to properly plan ahead. If we're talking about the teenage brain, that's still developing its prefrontal cortex, right? So this is the part responsible for planning and impulse control. So writing those tasks down, whether that be with a pen and pencil on paper, whether that's online, whether that's in a Google Calendar, and breaking them into steps is drastically going to improve that follow through. Okay. And consistent routines reduce anxiety. I also know as students are transitioning into college and we have this huge social change, right? We're also going to have very, very inconsistent routines. Going to bed at different times, going to school at different times. Everything is going to be different. So even if we can have some consistency of every Wednesday at 7 to 7:45, I'm going to work on this. Whatever that task management may be, does help a little bit to reduce anxiety. The more students are able to have consistent routines at school, then it's going to build their confidence that they can keep doing that. Okay, well, I did this for an hour last Wednesday. Maybe on Thursday I can do it too, right? And then structure at home obviously supports independence. In terms of body doubling, I get a lot of questions about how can we do that at home. I mean, I think back to my childhood when there wasn't, I don't want to say there wasn't the internet because I'm not that old, but there was an internet in my room where there's one computer in the entire house, right? So if we were working on homework, we usually sat around the table and we all worked on homework together. Or my mom was working on her checkbook, when you used to balance your checkbook. And then I was working on my homework and my brother was working on his. And I definitely think that kind of body doubling is super helpful. I think when students are alone and get lost and don't know how to ask for help, we don't know if they're just sitting there, right? So I definitely think having time where you're sitting at home all working together on whatever that is, or even as a parent, if you're just reading a book, then you can have more check-ins of, hey, how's it going? So also, I get a lot of questions about how can we help self-advocate now, right? If they're before they get to college, where does that self-advocacy piece come in? And I think from even in high school, when you have, say you're going to go on vacation and you know that your child's going to miss 3 days, right? Having them go to the teacher and be like, hi, I'm going to miss 3 days. Can I make up my work before? Can I make up my work after? Right? Having plans in effect, or even if they have to write emails to say, hey, I missed this, or talking to their teacher, maybe working that out with them beforehand. Like, let's practice how you're going to go talk to your teacher so it's not so scary to say, I have to do these things, right? So when they get to college, when those things happen, hey, I missed class, I missed an assignment, then they feel more comfortable doing it. Oftentimes, students are just very scared about going to their professor and admitting that there's an issue, or there may be some shame of missing an assignment or whatever it is. So, literally helping them self advocate and getting them 90% of the way through, and then giving them that little push for the 10% just to practice self advocacy in high school, I think is very important, which can help in the college process. Okay, so we often also now can see anxiety as an accommodation, right? A lot of students that are diagnosed with anxiety can definitely talk to their professors about it and say, hey, sometimes I really struggle with anxiety, and if as long as I talk to you beforehand or let you know when, there's something really going on, is it possible for me to turn in an assignment a little bit late? As long as we talk beforehand. There's no guarantee that professors will always do this, right? But I always tell my students there's no harm in asking for help and letting people know what's going on because there are more and more students, as we probably all know, that are diagnosed with anxiety and depression as a comorbidity of neurodivergence. So having that, already having those accommodations set in place, it can provide some short-term relief. To be able to talk to their professor beforehand so it doesn't become a spiral or a cycle of just not turning things in and not talking to their professor, et cetera. Okay. So looking at a little bit of fostering independence at home. So as we talked about, having that little bit of pieces of task, managing it on their own. So having students pull out all that stuff from the backpack, right? And so it's not all squished at the bottom and organizing on their own, letting them manage some of these tasks instead of doing it for them. Work on those role play scenarios that we talked about. And then having choices. I know that we all like choices, right? So having that choice within the structure. So can we have two different study times, maybe one that works better for the student, or different study spaces so that they have their own decision making within, within limits, but also giving them that structure that so when they get onto college, they will have that, it doesn't have to be one way. And then encouraging self-reflection without judgment. So after assignments or projects, right? Whether they do well or whether they don't do well. Say, what do you think worked well for you and what would you do differently next time? I think especially I tell my students, I have learned the most when I failed than I ever did when I did great at something, right? I remember I got like a 17% on a chemistry quiz, and I've never forgotten that in my entirety of my adulthood because I was like, wow, I really did not understand that material. So, learning from when we do well and maybe not so well. And then model self-advocacy. So talk through your own examples as a parent or caregiver and how you had to positively advocate for yourself. And maybe you're still working on that, right? I know that I'm still working on self-advocation at work and with my friends even, right? So telling them that it's okay that we're all in a learning process and how we did it ourselves. Okay, don't want to keep going. I want to give Melanie a little bit of time. So, I'll talk about what we do after, but I want to make sure Melanie has her time. So I'm gonna skip past this one.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tara. Wow, there's a lot of crossover actually that you'll see in terms of what you said and then how we'll talk about emotions. And the first thing that really stands out to me is the growth mindset, like that this is something that can really be built and grown. And that if you're a teen or a parent of a teen, even if you just came to learn about emotional regulation yourself, that this is something that can be grown and you're doing the best that you can in this moment, but it's definitely a skill that you can practice and expand. So, emotional regulation, we'll talk about riding the waves, tips and tools for navigating big emotions and academic stress to make room for productivity and presence with what matters. So, first of all, let's just normalize emotional waves that as much as we might get frustrated by them, emotions are part of the human experience and they serve a purpose. There's also evolutionary reasons for this. This is how we bond with people. This is how we are empathic. And also, even from the most deep and difficult emotions, we find a way to relate to someone's experience and that there's a lot to be gained from even the emotions that we might deem negative. And sometimes someone comes in to see me and they are not feeling anything. They're in an anhedonic state. They're not feeling pleasure or pain or any emotion. And part of how that happens is if you're shutting down and repressing some emotions so deeply, sometimes you turn off the knob to feel any emotion. And really, emotional health is marked by having access to all of these emotions, even though some of them we might not enjoy as much. Um, Also, that like waves, emotions, they rush in, they crest, fall, and eventually do pass. And in most cases, time takes care of the emotional wave cycle, like just time alone could take care of it. But we can help the process along with a curious and capable mindset and growing these emotional regulation skills. Also, part of this discussion is what's in our control versus what's out of our control. So, out of our control is the thought that pops up or the emotion that comes up for us. That actually is out of our control, scientifically proven. But what is in our control is what we do once we notice that that's come up and where we take it and kind of how we follow that path or not. Okay, so the regulation and executive function link. So when teens can turn the volume up or down on their feelings, they free up attention for, like Dr. Tara said, working memory tasks, staying flexible when plans shift, and regulating impulse control. And good regulation, it really leads to less emotional noise, which lets the brain focus and experience mental space. And this is not just for productivity, this is also for openness to experience and flexibility and connection. And long-term studies show that early mastery of emotional regulation predicts better academic performance, health, and career outcomes. And then this is like ding, 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 modeling, like modeling. Dr. Tara said that too. Modeling this as a parent and modeling emotional regulation and practicing yourself and also encouraging the practice of calm down strategies. And we'll talk more about this, but such as expression, venting, naming of feelings, breathing techniques, and mindfulness, or a quick walk or physical activity, it directly bolsters access to executive functioning skills that teens need to thrive. Okay, tool number one. This is called Name It to Tame It. This comes from Dan Siegel, a renowned psychotherapist, psychologist, and neuroscientist. And we do share the same last name, but unfortunately at this point, I don't know that we're related, but fingers crossed. So he came up with this tool and this name for the tool called Name It to Tame It. And quite simply, it's that research shows that naming what you're feeling to yourself and or sharing with a caring adult is a great first step. And this is important. Sometimes the only step needed to regulate emotion is the expression, the naming to yourself. And that would sound like, I'm noticing anxiety is here. I'm noticing that I'm anxious or feeling really frustrated right now. Naming it to yourself. And then best case scenario is you're also sharing it with someone else, a friend, a caring, trusted teacher or adult, parent. And this means resisting the instinct, or as a parent, emphasizing that we want to resist the instinct to not burden others or ignore the feeling so it goes away. Ignoring and the repressing actually makes the feeling bigger. And acknowledging emotions will help you feel more understood, less alone, and it's proven, again, to help diminish the intensity of the feeling. Another thing that has been studied and is really helpful, and it seems simple, in some ways it's good that it is using emotional granularity. So that means the more specifically that you name what you're feeling and building your emotional vocabulary, the more relieved you may feel. So if sadness is what's come up in that way that you can't control, it's come up, you could ask yourself once you name it, I'm noticing sadness. More specifically, what kind of color or flavor of sadness I'm feeling? Actually, I think I'm feeling lonely or frustrated. My sadness actually is more frustration, or I'm grieving something. I'm grieving the loss of the freedom I had last year, or I'm actually grieving the loss of someone or something. And being specific really helps build self-understanding and provide emotional relief. Tool number two, this is empathy, validation, and self-compassion. So the person that you are in the longest relationship with of your life is you. So really thinking about how you speak to yourself. And this means shifting the inner monologue from, like I said, sometimes some emotions feel inconvenient or frustrating, but if we can start to shift the inner monologue from, why am I so mad? What is wrong with me? To something more empathetic, validating, and self-compassionate, such as, wow, I notice I'm feeling mad right now. And I guess specifically with the emotional granularity, I'm feeling frustrated. And then self-compassion. It's hard feeling this mad. This doesn't feel good. It's hard. I have a lot of compassion for myself right now. And you might go so far as to make the connection to the why of it. It makes so much sense, validating. It makes so much sense that I'm angry and frustrated right now because I felt betrayed by my friend or whatever that is in that blank. For the caring adult listening, this means validating and reflecting to show understanding and empathy. So there might be just that like, "Ugh, I want to help my kid fix it. I want to help them get through this and solve it. But we don't want to rush. So we kind of shift from like, it will be okay, which sounds like it might be comforting, but it could also be invalidating. So it will be okay. Let's figure out how to solve this. Might shift to something like, I'm here to listen if that's helpful. And this is the huge thing that I've seen with so many of my teens is the thing that they most want to hear from a parent when they share something, a gripe, they're venting, is just, oh, that sucks. Like just that alone is so validating for them. So something more like that, it sounds like you're feeling really down. And that makes sense. Not, it'll be okay, don't worry about it. That makes sense. So we don't want to rush the feeling or try to fix it immediately. But after empathizing, you can ask if the teen would like to collaborate on solutions to move forward or not. Like they actually might not need it, or they might want to do the problem solving for themselves. As I said on the last slide, sometimes that expression is actually enough, and letting that kind of be the powerful thing that it is. Okay, other top tools for regulation, science-backed, teen tested. Maybe all of this verbal expression, you're like, that's not really where my teen is at. That's maybe they'll start doing that internal naming if they were sitting here listening, or but nonverbal expression is great for regulation too. So if you notice that something is coming up to encourage your teen, you could note it if they're not verbalizing. You could say, it seems like you're kind of going through something right now, and encourage, again, like Dr. Tara said as well, choice. Like physical activity is a great way to break that up, like going for a run, jumping jacks, anything that they like to do. A creative hobby, drawing, painting. There have been a lot of studies about the use of music and how teens use this as they gravitate towards this for emotional regulation. Usually teens will have like a mood matching playlist where they get to experience sadness through songs that are really sad and allow them to go there and kind of cycle through the emotion. And then some teens gravitate more towards mood shifting, and they'll kind of go to a happier song or a more calming song or soothing. And some teens use both, but that's like a very effective way of moving through emotion. Contained or scheduled worry time. Sounds silly, but this is huge. I even use this with adult clients, that if you make an appointment to worry, you feel like, okay, I'm getting ahead of this and I'm taking care of this inconvenient thing, right? So like you're at school, you have all these things you need to do and you're feeling so worried. I have some of my teen clients text either a friend or a parent and say like, can we like make a time this afternoon to talk about something that I'm freaking out about? Because I can't really like deal with this right now, but it just kind of gives it some containment, to use a therapy word. And it lets you know, like, okay, I hear this, I hear the cue of this emotion or worry, and I'm taking care of it. Any sort of self-soothing, again, this is really personal to each of our unique, human needs, but this could be like weighted blanket, getting cozy with a pet. This could be watching a TV show that you know exactly what happens in, so it's very comforting and there's no kind of like spikes to it, right? And intentional breathing. We'll see if we have time to do that one together. Just lead like just a little, just see how you feel. Because I know people are like, oh, breathing. But I mean, there's a reason that they train, people in the Army and Navy to do all these breathing exercises. Highly, highly effective for emotional regulation, even just 1 minute of it. So in wrapping up here, and then maybe I'll do just this very short breathing exercise. When teens feel understood and calmer, their brain becomes available again for planning, studying, problem solving, and being present in their lives for what's important to them. And building the skill of emotional regulation is rewarding and empowering in that it shifts us from fearing, rejecting, and repressing our emotions, being in judgment of them, to feeling capable and curious when they arise. So it might not be easy, but I really feel it's a worthwhile practice. And really quick, I think we have time to just do a quick breathing exercise. So anyone who feels comfortable and is safe right now, like i.e. not driving, you can close your eyes and I will model that for you. I'll close my eyes and just getting comfortable however you're sitting right now. Close your eyes and notice where your feet are and your hands are in space. And starting to deepen your breath. And then if you'd like, on your inhale, you can say to yourself the word let. And on your exhales, you can say to yourself the word go. And just gently noticing if there's anything in particular that you're letting go of. And from here, taking 3 deep breaths at your own pace. And then softly, gently, and in your own time, making your way back into the space, opening your eyes. I'm here. Hello, everyone. I think I just have one last thank you. So I'm so excited for you and your teens to try these tools and grow your emotional regulation skills. Please be patient as you find what works. It's new, and take in the little wins as you learn how to ride the waves. And again, I'm Melanie Siegel, and there's my contact info there. If you ever want to get in touch, available for resources or questions, feedback, anything.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll send out an email with the recording to everyone, and I will put both mine and Melanie's contact info in case you need these. We'll also have this on our website. So there's me.
Good.
Um, and basically, we skipped over the slide, but my team and I work with students that are transitioning to college or maybe in high school or facing the transition from middle to high on executive functioning skills and how they work with academia. And we're always happy to work with therapists and other providers to also work together to see how to support your child best. I do have a book coming out in the summer about my experiences working with neurodivergent college students, starting where they're at, and then all the amazing places that they've been since then. So I'm going to stop sharing and then leave it open to any questions anybody may have. Comments, concerns, anything?
Thank you guys for being here. It's lovely to share with you. Anything? Euler?
Yeah, I have a comment that I wanted to make. Um, I'm on my phone, so I'm trying to like see everybody. Okay. So I really love the strategy about like scheduling the worries.
Hmm.
And I think that that's funny because when you look at that and you schedule it, then it kind of becomes inconvenient to worry. So I really love that. That was really
That,
good.
thank you. Is it Lisette?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm glad.
Lizette.
I'm
Hmm.
glad that that resonated for you. It's like it's almost what we call in therapy a paradoxical intervention. It almost makes you not want to worry. This is like a thing with couples therapy too, that you like schedule fights with your partner when you think they're going to happen, and then it's like, wait, do we even need to do this? Like, what are we
That's great.
doing?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for helping? We have a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old, and a lot of times when we try to help with task initiation, we're just met with so much anxiety and so much stress that it becomes it's a real barrier. It's that just then ends up being anger and frustration. So then it becomes easier to just not even remind that there's a big paper coming up or something like that.
Yeah. I wonder if there's something, if naming that the anxiety is coming up or asking what's coming up, and maybe trying one of the things, those tools, even though they seem really simple, of like maybe it would help before we do the task to do something else, like to do something that would feel comforting or like a breath of fresh air, take a walk with them, or yeah, just encouraging something else to, I mean, sometimes it's just like, let's change the dance moves of like our dance. If like I ask, you get angry and frustrated, like, okay, like what's coming up, and maybe some like choices, like menu of choices of something that might help. Do you
What's
have any?
the
Yeah.
Yeah, is it all task initiation? I can't even say that word. Or is it just to do with school? Is it both? Is it
It can be both. It's both. But a lot of things with school, and they are generally the bigger assignments. Um, lately, this one of our kids has just chooses to not do assignments if they stress them out. And smaller assignments, of course, aren't as big of a deal. But when it's a paper that's 30% of your grade or something, it's a bigger deal. Some things that with the body doubling, I've noticed, like for instance, art projects, it's very stressful because it's so open-ended sometimes that it's hard to get started. But we've done some of the things that you've some of the tips you've suggested, like we watch a show that they've seen a million times so they can still work on the art, but it doesn't feel um, so burdensome. Or but other assignments like that, that paper that is very daunting, it's not as easy to have something else going on at the same time.
have you tried to chunk it into smaller pieces? Like say you've tried to be like, let's work on it for 30 minutes even?
Yes. Sometimes even 5 minutes. Like let's just get, let's just brainstorm about what you might want to do. But I mean it's just baby steps, but um
What about have you having, like I said, someone else that's working on the project? Like what about another student or friend? Is that helpful or is that more of a
with in this particular case, there's some I think there would be anxiety with
another person
too
there?
much too embarrassing for that. But we have tried some things, like there's someone online that an executive function coach that they meet with once a week for a half hour. And a lot of times I've heard that they're just doing body doubling.
Yeah.
So paying someone to body double, but I
Yeah.
mean, but they're more open to it because it's not me. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
I
and
mean,
we've we've started to initiate and trying to get them to go to the writing center at college. And I'm so thankful that their professor required it for the first assignment, because it took the anxiety of going, and it was required. And so they
so it's, yeah, it's part of it. I mean, obviously, as someone who works, I hire executive functioning coaches, right? It is body doubling, a lot of it. And a lot of it is just being someone who's not your parent,
yes.
asking you to do those things. And my other um, suggestion, which you probably already tried, but if not, have you tried, will they let you type for them? Like if you're brainstorming, will they let you, as long as it's their words, will they let you do it?
In the past they have, and with their younger sibling lets me do that, but
Okay.
this student basically just wants me to leave them alone. But
Because
I'll offer again. That's a good suggestion. I haven't offered in a while. So
yeah, that's something that even with some students that I've worked with that have some issues with like OCD, that they're just so scared that you're going to type not something exactly that they say, that I'll just do it for them. I'm going to type exactly what you say and they can see it and that helps them get started. Because I think, like you said, oh, we're just brainstorming, we're just talking, or I'm gonna type while you talk. Right. And it can be about anything, but then sort of revolving back to that would be my suggestion. Let's just see if it works, right? Anybody else?
Uh, I have a question. And if this is not the right forum, you can just say, send me an email. Um, can you tell me about the Bridge to College program?
Oh, that we're doing this summer?
Yeah,
So we're having an asynchronous bridge to college, which will be like a 5 or 6 modules. That's sort of like, I don't know, Will, if you took like did you have to take a intro to college class?
no.
Okay, so I had to do it at Florida State, and it's basically like learn where the map of everything is. And if you're neurodivergent, how do you sign up for your accommodations? Where do we do that? Where can we find resources on campus? So we're doing that asynchronously, and then that'll be up probably like in June. And then if you want something more personal, we can do that with a coach, and it'll be personalized for your college. But it'll be like what to look for when registering. And just sort of like what I like to think of is that that I know I had to do in the early 2000s, which was like a learn about how to transition instead of waiting, I feel like, until the very end, which is what they do now with orientation, where it's like 2 days before college and you're like, huzzah. So it'll have those modules. And once we have it up, feel free to send us an email and we'll probably break down what the modules are. But the asynchronous one will obviously be probably the most cost effective. And it'll be as detailed as we have it. It'll also have workbook stuff that they can take with them and work on. And then, like I said, we'll also have, if you want to schedule a couple of sessions to make it more personalized, whatever works best for you. Perfect. Okay, well, we will stick around in case anybody has questions for the next few minutes. And then, like I said, we'll email this to you guys in case you want it or need it. And then you'll have Melanie and I's contact information. And if anything else comes up, feel free to let us know. And thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.